Good afternoon. My name is Karen Duncan, and I am so thrilled to welcome you all to the 16th Annual Savannah Book Festival. Today's festival is presented by the Philip and Nancy Beekman Foundation, the Nancy and David Cintron, the Robert Faircloth, the Courtney Knight Gaines Foundation, and the Gerald and Helen Stevens Foundation, with special thanks to a grant from the Georgia Humanities. We are especially grateful to Judy and Gary Lautzenheiser for sponsoring this Lutheran Church sanctuary today. We'd like to welcome everyone here today and our literati members, and remember that your support is what keeps this festival free and fun every Saturday. David Ambroz, who you'll meet in a minute, will be signing festival purchased copies of his book, in Telfair Square, immediately following this presentation. Please take a moment to turn your cell phones off. Remember, there is no water or drinking of any site in this church today. I'm sure you were told that coming in. And please, no flash photography. As you exit, you'll see our wonderful volunteers, and we hope you'll be generous. There will be an opportunity to ask David questions, and he will be ready for those, and we'll have a microphone. So just raise your hand high, 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 so our ladies in white shirts can find you and hand you the microphone. David Ambroz is with us here today, courtesy of Union Mission here in Savannah. Thank you, Mark, and everyone at Union Mission. David is a national poverty and child welfare expert and advocate. He was recognized by President Obama as an American champion of change. He currently serves as the head of community engagement for Amazon. Previously, he led corporate social responsibility for Walt Disney Television and served as the president for the Los Angeles City Planning Commission and as a California Child Welfare Council member. After growing up homeless and then in foster care, David graduated from Vassar and later from the UCLA School of Law. He is a foster dad and lives in Los Angeles. Please join me in giving a warm Savannah welcome to David Ambroz.
I love your boots. How do you see those? I'm waiting for lightning. Hey, y'all. I did it. I said it once. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a quick selfie before you heckle me and walk out halfway through. If you have a book, hold it up. Yeah. Thank you. No one will believe me otherwise. So I'd like to just start and jump in and to read the first chapter. And then I'd like to tell you what happened just before the first chapter started, because that's not in the book. Because you're here, I'll tell you. And then I love good questions. So are you ready? All right. Are you sure? All right, me too. I'm hungry. I've waited as long as I can, and I now scoot past my siblings to tug on my mother's jacket. She swats me away. Walk straight, Mom commands. Her voice deep and robotic, the voice of a stranger. If we stop walking, we will freeze to death. It's Christmas in Manhattan, and the Midtown department store windows glow, each one a framed fantasy. My neck swivels as I pass, entranced by the rich golds, reds, and greens. My eyes fix on a display with an electric chain, chugging in a circle around a tree. It weaves through snowy heaps of presents, some wrapped with pictures of toys on the outside. I'm only 5, and all I know of Christmas is the stories I've heard at churches where we go for free meals. And that in December, music drifts from the doorway of every store, and their windows fill with magic. I want more than anything to get my hand on that train. A man crosses between me and my brother and sister, bags brimming with gifts hanging from both arms. His pale face is flushed with cold. He steps out onto the street and hails a taxi. I watch for a moment as he gets in, feeling a longing I don't understand. I want to be part of his life, to be his child, to be him, to be so blissfully unaware of the luxury of a warm taxi. I pull my eyes away, returning them to the backs of my mother and siblings. From behind, Mom's jacket looks like a puffy sleeping bag with arms. The three of us follow her like ducklings, eyes locked onto that jacket. Jessica, the oldest, is right behind Mom. She's 7 and sometimes holds my hand when the streets aren't so crowded. Then comes Alex. He's 6, 1 year older than me. He's constantly in motion, balancing on curbs and jumping up against walls when it's not so cold. Then there's me. Tourists shove in all directions, still warm from wherever they got their last hot chocolates, the winter air bringing a holiday pink to their cheeks. I dodge them expertly without pausing. No matter how alluring that window is, the most important thing is not to lose my family. On the fringes of this shiny holiday wonderland, in the dark alcoves and corners of the night, are people like us, passing like ghosts around and through the bright, clean tourist areas. We drift in circles, making our home everywhere and nowhere. We hunker down in the colorless crevices of the city, in the gray shadows of gray buildings, where the gray snow is piled. We are gray people, fading to nothing. We head further uptown, and as Times Square bleeds into the Upper West Side, neighborhoods shift in characters. I know this area by its sidewalks. My favorite are the ones embedded with mica. They sparkle like diamonds. The sun sets over apartment buildings, and darkness begins to spread over Manhattan. Nights are the worst time to be outside. My mother stares straight ahead into the eve of the night, lost in her own thoughts. It's cold. It's getting colder. And we don't have a destination. Mom, I try to get her attention, but it's futile when she's in this state. She flatly repeats her refrain, walk straight. Hours pass this way, the temperature drops. Each puddle has a skin of ice. The snow heaped on either side of the shoveled sidewalks is hard as rock. The city is frozen solid. My feet are stubs. I stare down at them to make sure they're still there. My dirty sneakers, plucked from trash, are clownishly large. The laces wrapped once around the sole and then tied in a bow on top to help them stay on. Each time I take a step, my foot floats up in the shoe, then reconnects with the sole and the pavement when I step. I count as high as I can to pass the time, 41, 42, but I'm fuzzy. I keep losing track of the count, and I switch to songs and stories. Last night we had dinner at a church, macaroni and a sermon on the side. We heard the story of 3 kings bringing gifts to the baby Jesus: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. What is myrrh? They walked all night too, following a star. We need a star. Instead, our homelessness stretches on forever, in all directions, studded with temporary refuges, a bus shelter, a subway car, a shelter, a church, a hospital waiting room, a Bowery slum. I am angling for any of those tonight. Mom, how about there? I spot a subway vent and can see steam rising from the metal grid. It's unclear whether she hears me. Regardless, she does not answer. Her eyes dart left and right behind her fogged glasses. She's checking to see if anyone is following us. This time, in spite of her suspicions, she stops, and we know this means we're allowed to pause above the grate. Warm air seeps out. My exposed hands feel it first, then my body, and finally my toes start to prick back to life. This must be what it was like when the three wise men found the baby Jesus. I hear the rumble before I feel it, and I sneak a glance at my brother Alex. Our eyes connect, and the corner of his mouth turns up in a sly smile. He hears it too. The rumble surges to a roar, and a subway car shoots through the station below. A welcome blast of damp air envelops us. Yes, Alex says. I could stay here all night, but the respite is tantalizingly short. A gray figure emerges. Good evening, he says, politely enough, but Mom hears danger. Get over here, she says, shooing us off the grate. He's not the only one. Others are emerging from the dark corners to usurp this subway grate. The only people brave enough or lost enough to be out on the streets tonight are also wrapped like mummies. Their breath floats from unseen slits and colorless cloth. Whatever plumage any of them once had is fading. They step toward us, and my mom propels us onward. Enough. Let's go. Mom says, to where, I wonder? We end up right back where we started, walking. Mom must be getting cold. Does she even feel the cold? I can't be sure. I look at my brother and sister. Jessica's steps are dragging. Alex, the troublemaker, constantly in motion, is silent. My siblings have not spoken hours. There's no joking, there's no whining, there's no annoying each other. No pestering Mom about where we're going. We know to be quiet and obedient when she's in this state. But I have to try something. I take a deep breath. Mom, we're close to the Port Authority. Can we go inside? I venture. Walk straight, they're after us. Mom is always worried about people coming to get us, but they never come. The three of us already understand that although there are real dangers, they are only in her mind. Now Jessica trips, slumping to the ground. Alex and I stop short. I want to help her, but my thoughts are muddled. I move too slowly. She silently drags herself to her feet. She breathes puffs of mist. This might be the coldest night we've ever walked. And through the fog of my brain, it occurs to me that my sister is not okay. Alex is too quiet. My own mind does not feel right. We're disappearing into ghosts. We've done this before, or walked all night with Mom. We've never had a place to go home, never stayed in one place long enough for me to remember it. But for the first time in my life, though I don't have the words for it, I think we might die. There's a calculation I make when I talk to my mom. Will she hit me, and is it worth it? Asking for a candy bar is not worth it. Complaining is not worth it. That's a mistake I won't make twice. But when she's challenging an authority or beating up on one of us too much, I take the risk. I need to keep this family going. I try again. Mom, we should go inside, I say. In my head, I'm saying so much more. I'm saying all of it. Mom, we're cold. I love my sister. You're killing us. Wake up. I want to slap her with these words. Mom, I can't feel my feet. I can't breathe. Mom, I'm not shivering anymore. Mom, we're dying. Mom stops and looks at me for the first time in hours. She's going to hit me. Is she going to hit me? I can usually tell, but not right now. We stand there waiting in front of her. We can't navigate this world on our own. Not yet. Okay, Mom relents. Victory. Somewhere, somehow, with new vigor, we march. We march past fast food restaurants, hair salons, metal roll-down doors. She must have a destination in mind. Does she have a destination in mind? Her mind is a riddle I'm constantly trying to solve to survive. We find ourselves outside a box of a building with black painted metal doors. It's hunkered down on the street. The building looks like it's avoiding eye contact. Mom rings the doorbell. The street is completely silent, asleep or abandoned. Mom rings and then bangs and bangs. Finally, she yells, "Hey, open up the goddamn door." This is our warrior mom, breaking through the voices in her head, the delusions, fighting for our lives. The door opens, and the heat flows toward us like a dream. We surge forward, ice zombies. "Lady, this is a men's shelter," the man at the threshold announces, blocking our way. "What the hell is wrong with you?" my mom roars. "Excuse me?" the man says. "Don't speak to me like that." She says something about the clouds from a bombing in Ireland and nuclear waste. It's all around us out here, and you're exposing us to it." The man looks startled and is suddenly speechless at this. They are at an impasse. I feel a surprising warmth move down my leg. Then the warmth quickly cools, and the smell of urine rises up to my nose. I hadn't realized that I had to pee or that it was happening. The man looks at me for the first time, truly looks. His dreads are pulled neatly back, his eyes bright, like the man I saw getting to the taxi. I want this man too. I want him to protect me. I want to be the person like him who owns the warmth and lets people in from the cold. His glance flits from me to Alex to Jessica. His pause is an eternity. He holds my life. "Fine, come in, but you can't let the kids out of your sight," he says to my mother. "This place isn't safe for them." "You don't think I already know that?" she says. "The guys in here are fucked up." He ushers us into a warehouse-like space, and I see what he means. Some shelters are bright and clean with safe spaces for kids. This room is not. It's dark, and I don't see any children. Ahead, I only see the outlines of rows and rows of what look to be coffins. On top of each lies a single body. "Are they dead?" I ask. "Nearly," he says, deadpan. He points at a single empty cot. "That's all?" Mom asks. "What the fuck do you want? This isn't a hotel," he snaps, suddenly sharp. "Okay." Like I said, don't let them out of your sight. "Sit," Mom tells us. I smell my own urine, but now it's dominated by the stench and funk of sweat and vomit that brews in this overheated room. If outside was hell frozen over, then this is hell defrosted. I wonder, looking around, what has brought each man here. My mother stands above us. As my eyes get used to the dark, I see something in her face shift. Another mom is emerging. This is the one that knows what to do. This mom hugs us as often as the other mom hits us. "Is this what you want?" Mom asks, gesturing to the room full of lost souls, the strung out, the drunk, the miserable specters of their imminent deaths. Mom doesn't usually talk about the future. Poverty is never about the future. It's obsessed with now, as it must be for us to survive. We walk a high wire of just trying to survive, and I sense more than understand something in that moment, what my mother is asking. "No," I cry out loud. "This is not what I want." I catch only glimpses of other lives, spotting them and speeding past them like an express train, but I am certain that I don't want this. I begin to weep. I'm starving. I'm afraid my mom might hit me. I don't want to see Jessica fall again. I don't like it, and Alex is quiet. I don't want to be here, surrounded by the nameless, homeless masses, sitting in my own urine. My brother and sister lean into me from either side as I weep, wanting to comfort me, but none of us quite able. I don't know. I don't know what I'll have to do to escape this life. It's all I've ever known. But somewhere in the darkness, my mother has unleashed a spark of hope. She's asking me what I want. And in that question is the implication that I have a choice. She's asked me to believe in something better. I'm 5, I think, but I already know this. I want a roof to sleep under for more than a night, with furniture and blankets and toys. I want to protect my siblings. I want to protect us from Mom. And I want to protect Mom from Mom. I want to be that man getting to the taxi with gifts for his family. I want to be the man in the shelter with a warm space that he decides how to share. I want to be another man too, one I haven't met yet. I have no idea what life could be like, but for the first time, I know what I want, not this. Okay, good, Mom says. She doesn't want this for me either, for any of us. The chaos inside of her that spills out to engulf us. She sits down next to us. I lie back horizontal across the single cot, my feet dangling off the side, squeezed between my siblings, and with a woman who, for a brief moment, has come as close as she ever will to becoming and being our real mom. I curl quietly into this dog pile of my family. That's chapter 1. So, as promised, I know it's emotional, right? I'm emotional. So right before it, and this is why I wrote the book, right before it, my family had been living in Grand Central in New York City. And there was a effort, as there is today with homeless, to, quote, clean it up. And in Los Angeles, I achieved a politically powerful position. I was the chair and president of the Planning Commission. And I wasn't very out about my childhood experiences. People knew somewhat. But the dialogue around homelessness has devolved, where we use words like it to describe a people, my people. If we had died that night, no one would have cared. And I realized that I had to come out again about this, because we have to de-other homeless people. We have to share our stories. A lot of people experience homelessness, housing insecurity, food insecurity, and we don't talk about it, and we have to. And then there were so many other experiences I had that I wanted to share more deeply. That night when they pushed us out of Grand Central reminds me so much of what's happening in Los Angeles, where I live. Cleaning it up. And I knew that I had to share this story and work on these things that mattered so much to me. And I thought the way to do that was to share my story. So that's in part why I wrote the book. I could talk more, but I want to answer a ton of questions. So I'll pause there. I could tell a few other stories if people don't have questions, but I'd love to answer a few questions if you have them. And I think we're going to have people with microphones. Can we just thank the volunteers? I tried to change my red lanyard, which is the author lanyard, for the yellow one, because it's more of my color. They wouldn't give it to me.
Okay, right here.
Hello, hello.
Hi, I loved your book. It really opened my eyes on a lot of things. And I just wanted to know, are you still close with your siblings?
Oh, yes. So what happened? Well, first of all, it has a happy ending. I'm very close with my siblings. So we were separated when we went into foster care. When I went into foster care, this is an oversimplification, but it's true. You're given a rating. You can think of it as a 1 to 10. The higher the rating, the more challenging you are, and therefore the placement where you go has to be ready and able to take care of you. If you have a disability, if you have medication needs, if you have behavioral issues. So because I was gay, I was diagnosed as gay when I went into foster care. They called it something else, gender identification disorder. And they put me in a prison system. My brother and sister went to a foster home where they were mostly together with somewhat of an eccentric woman, but nice enough. And I didn't see them for a while. We are very close today. Everyone's very happy, have children. They're successful in their own metrics, and they're doing great. So yeah, I'm very close with them. In fact, I'm probably going to text them that photo in 5 minutes. This morning, I don't know if you guys know Leopold's here. Yeah, Well, I'm Tutti Frutti. The ice cream flavor has been renamed after me. Rainbow, I don't know. I wonder where that comes from. Anyway, so yes, I am very close. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I've read your book, and I think you have. Is it on?
Yes, it is now. Go ahead, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You have, I don't know, horrific foster care stories. When you were separated from your children, I don't remember whether you were out gay, but you were sent to just terrible places, and none of the Family Children Services rescued you. Could you share a little bit about that and what children can do? I mean, I don't know. I can't remember at what point you were taken away from your mother and put in foster care, but even I would think it would be interesting to hear some of those stories.
Yeah. I'll definitely answer your question. If not, you can heckle me. But the first part I would say is, what I never do is condemn the people that were horrible to me. We too quickly condemn something called the system. Do you guys want to know a secret? You and we are the system. We think voting once in a while is going to keep this country going. It's not. That's not active citizenship. How many of us could but don't foster or mentor or donate or volunteer? And so the foster parents that I had, except with one exception, were really quite cruel. I'm not going to beat around the bush. And the delinquency facility where I was placed still gives me nightmares to this day. But I think the answer is not to chase those people. I forgive them. I've always thought about forgiveness as like yoga. You have to practice it. It's not one and done. Like most of my relationships, it's kind of like a constant back and forth of forgiveness. And that's what I think about when I think of those people. A lot of us have had cruel experiences at the hands of others. And the only person that truly hurts on an ongoing basis is ourselves. Anyone ever cut you off in traffic and it pisses you off and the rest of the day you're thinking about them? Do you know what they're not thinking about? Yeah, you. So not to make light of it, but I've consistently sought to forgive and move forward those folks and encourage people to realize that we have the power. If we close our eyes as individuals and think about our children or a dog or a loved one, what if we had to place them in foster care or a shelter? What does that look like? What would you want for yours? That's what the solution is. That's what I ask each of you to go create here and nationally. We can do it. Every day is a decision of the world we kind of want, a world we want to live in. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
Yeah, Bear in the back.
Hi, David.
Hi.
First of all, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you so much for being a foster parent. My name's Terry Wright. I'm a volunteer with CASA. Are you familiar with their programs?
Am I familiar with CASA? Court-appointed special
Please
advocates.
volunteer. We need help to make a difference
Yeah.
to these children. But I raised my kids in Fairfield County, Connecticut, super wealthy, and I had preconceived ideas of what the homeless community was, or people with substance abuse or mental illness. Now that I'm a CASA, I see things totally differently, and I see a lot of mothers who are desperate to keep their children together, whether it's substance abuse or mental illness. And it sounded like your mother was that way. Was she afraid, as I see so many women, to have someone help?
There's so many things in that. First of all, thank you. Court-appointed special advocates is like a big brother, big sister, but for foster kids. It's a great way to intervene and take action, and it's not forever. So the reality is, I don't know if you guys know this, but 2/3 of the kids entering foster care are there for neglect, not for maltreatment. Neglect in the United States of America is a euphemism for poverty, which is a euphemism for racism. We've criminalized a whole class of people, and then we take their children away and we put them through a meat grinder. And then we're shocked that the kids perpetuate the same problems that their families had. We can do better. The most important bill in my lifetime to be effectuated in the United States of America to stop that was signed by President Trump, and it basically allowed the federal government, which pays 98% of local foster care costs, roughly, to be used not just when they take the kid away. The only time you got reimbursed is when you took the kid out of the house. Now they can use the money to keep families together. So if mom, or mostly moms, poverty is women's work, unfortunately, in our country. Mom needs a job. Mom needs help with rent. Mom needs transportation, childcare. The funding can now be used to preserve the family as opposed to just taking the kid away. My mom was not one of those 2/3. My mom was, actively maltreating us and also suffered from a debilitating mental health condition. So we absolutely should never have been in her custody for more than a moment. But for most people, what I hope you walk away from this is we got to stop taking kids away from their parents if they don't need to be. We should be hyper vigilant about that. Take them away if we need to, but support the families, which a lot of nonprofits do great work on, like CASA. Yeah. I love your hat. Yes, please.
Oh, here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I get dibs. It's okay. I was curious about your experience as a foster parent. I just,
Yeah.
because it seems like it would potentially be healing for you, but also
Yeah.
the things you've learned.
There is a gold earring down here on the balustrade. It's not mine. So if someone lost it, it's $10. I'll give it to you for $10. So you didn't ask this, but I'm going to use this platform that I've been given to preach. A lot of people, when they find out I'm a foster dad, they're like, "Oh yeah, that makes total sense." It doesn't make sense. And you're not saying this, okay? So caveat. Foster kids owe no bill. They owe no bill. They don't owe service. They don't owe, they don't have to be involved in the system anymore. And so what a lot of people think is like, oh, there's a social worker now. That makes sense. It's not that that doesn't make sense. There's a gajillion careers. And because we've underexposed people to professional opportunities and they're a bit traumatized, they go to what they know. So that's not what you were saying. But to go to your question, I did not intend to be a foster parent. How many of you read the book already? Okay, the rest of you cover your ears. Spoiler alert. So I write about 3 to 4 foster placements. I had tens and tens of foster placements. I write about 3 because the book can't be 900 pages. And I volunteered at the YMCA to get out of a very abusive foster home, very abusive. And I met this woman. Her name was Holly, and she became my only great foster parent. Her and her husband, Steve, very blue-collar people. They were not foster parents before. And she did something which all of us can do better at. In our heads, what I often see happen is you see a homeless person or you see a crisis, and the first thought in your head is, I can't help that person because. Probably true. I'm busy, I'm poor, I'm tired, I have my own stuff. I'm volunteering on this other thing. But the thing that Holly did that was so revolutionary and a life lesson for me is she didn't stop at I can't do X, period. She made it a comma and said, but I will do this. And that is a revelation in American society. We have what people in philanthropy call the care list. What are the 3 things or 10 things you care most about in terms of social issues? Foster care is not even in the top 25. So how do we get to a place where people don't stop at I can't do X because of these limitations in my life? And how do we move them to that other thing, what they can do? Holly raised her hand To say that they were working class is generous, and fought to get me for 2 years. Ultimately, she succeeded. My foster son was part of something my sister did as a social worker, which is she would take, I called it the Underground Rainbow Railroad. She was a social worker, and foster care is still a hostile place for queer kids. 30% of foster kids identify as queer, triple the population in general society. And she would, if they were maybe gay, maybe not gay, or queer, she would bring them to me, and I would meet with them, and then I would connect them to resources by the dozens. And this young man walked to my office. My first thought was, he's not gay. He has bad hair, bad teeth, and a bad attitude. And I fell in love. And what happened to Holly when I was 12, 13, 14, is what he did to me, which is you just get to know these people, these young people with all the potential in the world. And I saw exactly what was ahead of it because I had endured it. And I thought, hell no, this is not happening again. And I had never considered being a foster parent. You know, I'm not a patient person. And he changed my life. He's the reason I can cry again. Kids will break your heart, right? Am I right? Okay. He broke my heart many a time, but he helped me become the full feeling person I am today. He's doing great. He's in a PhD program studying artificial intelligence. I don't understand what he does or studies. And I do tell him he's my retirement plan. So, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, over here.
Hi.
I came today on behalf of a young man I met that couldn't come, and he has a story to tell, and he's written a manuscript, but he's at a loss of what to do with it. But it involves addiction, it involves sexual abuse, it involves a whole panorama of things, including mental illness, intergenerational. And if you could tell me some things that I can tell that young man that he may want to do with that manuscript. It's hard to get a publisher, it's hard to know. But I did look at the manuscript. I'm author too. And I found that he has a good writing talent. He needs some skill.
So it's a good question. We've been in my story, but I'll tell you a little bit about the business of publishing, which I did not know anything about. I've written before. I wrote for websites like the Huffington Post, and I've written stuff, but I'd never written a book. And I had no idea the process of getting a book published. Part of it is the story itself. The part that I think pushed me across the finish line was threefold. The publisher wants to know that you can sell the book. They want to know that you can get up here, smile, talk, and move people. Publishing is a business, not a hobby. It's big business. So they want to know that you can move the book. Second, I put together a spreadsheet of people that I thought could help me promote the book. There is not a magic publicity machine that helps you get the book out. I am here today with this amazing book festival because Mark got harassed by somebody in his office, Ricardo, who heard me on NPR. I got on NPR because my friend who was in college with me is now a producer on a show. She called her friend on this other show, yada, yada. So I made this up. I created an Excel spreadsheet of everyone I was 2 degrees away from and exactly what I would ask them to do. And then third, I hate to say this, but it's luck and opportunity. I handed my first chapter to a friend of mine to read. Unknown to me, she sent it to her agent, who sent it to their friend, who sent it to Bob, to Mary, to Sue, and it ended up at my now agent's desk. And he called me. He's like, "Are you represented?" I'm like, "Is this Ed McMahon? Who the hell is calling me?" And I thought he was full of crap. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is a scam." Like, you know, and it wasn't. And I got an agent. So the third piece, unfortunately, you can't chart it, was for me luck. But that friend knew me and believed in me and helped me get the book out. So I hope those three are mildly helpful. Yeah.
I'd like to circle back to your comment about but, comma, and it has to do with homelessness in
Yeah.
general. And I must admit that when I pass someone on the street and I just don't know how to react. Some people say I don't want to give them money because they're going to go buy drugs with it. What do you suggest, having been there, is the best way to answer after the comma?
Thank you for asking that question. And it's funny because when I hear people say but comma, I'm like, oh, that sounds bad. I have to come up with a better way to say that. I am a corporate social responsibility expert, and I'm a poverty person that's been around the block and helped in laws and policy. There's what I call the right answer and then my hard answer. The right answer is to give the union mission. If you walk by a person and you're like, I'm not going to whatever, then go to your office or get on your phone and donate $1. Figure out if you can volunteer. Marie Kondo your closet. Do something. And it doesn't have to be every single time. We're all human, you know? But do something. What I always acknowledge, unless I feel unsafe, I acknowledge the person, the homeless person or the person in distress. And I say, I'm sorry, I cannot help you. Good luck. And sometimes they're hostile. This is not a saintly population. They're just like the rest of us, imperfect. But I always acknowledge. I quite often give money. I'm not going to lie. It is not the best thing to do. But when I was a kid, I'll tell you a quick story. I was begging on looking at my amazing hostess. We lived at the Grand Central. I don't know if any of you have ever spent a lot of time at a train station or a bus station. We spent a lot of time. And you begin to learn the best time to pick out of the trash, find cigarette butts, and you remember there used to be ashtrays, in public places, and beg. And if you're familiar with New York, there's a train that goes up the river called Metro North, which is the wealthy counties, Westchester, et cetera, up to Dutchess. And in the morning, the sea of navy blue, mostly men at the time, it was the early 80s, would come off the train with their papers. And, it was a great time to beg. And I remember so distinctly this morning where I was there and I was like, please, sir, wouldn't even look at me. And I remember this moment so clearly. It's like burnt 4 feet ahead of me on a packed concourse. The crowd parted and came back together behind me. I was an obstruction in the river, and the river went right around me. Never saw me. And I didn't have the words when I was a kid to say this, but I would say that I was unplugged from the matrix, pulled out. They looked past me because I was disgusting. I was disgusting. Let's not beat around the bush. I probably had lice. I'm certain I had perpetual face sores covering my face, and I probably hadn't showered in months. I lived at Grand Central. I lived underneath Grand Central. What the hell was I supposed to do? And I remember that moment because I just needed money. My family wasn't going to eat. It was very simple. And so when I think about these larger contextual answers to solving the systems that produce homelessness, there is a right answer, and we need to support union mission and policies. Homeless people don't magically appear. It's all these different policies we have here that lead to this. Mental health, good Lord, we could do a better job at that. All these different things. Do you know 1/3 of the homeless on the coasts are former foster kids or have been in foster care? 1/3. You're more likely to die coming out of foster care than go to college. You're more likely to go to jail than go to college. You're more likely to have a baby if you're a girl within a year than go to college. You are more likely as a girl coming out of foster care to be sexually trafficked than go to college. The number one source of girls that are sexually trafficked in our country are foster girls. And you know what? It's disproportionately from places that have ports. Know of any places with ports? Yeah. We have to fix the systems that lead to that person that you're wondering with that quandary what to do. What do? I try and do both. Because I just picture that kid that I was. Do you ever flip a coin and it's like heads or tails, right? Wrong. There's a third side. I was studying for the SATs in 1904, and I found this word. It's called equipoise. 1 in a billion, the coin lands on its side. Society is that coin. It's a collective delusion, and it works because we think it should until we don't. And for some people, it doesn't. And it's very fragile, and sometimes people fall over, and we need to help them. So that's a long, long answer to your question. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, loved your book.
I mean, if you every day of my life someone wants to start the sentence with that, that'd be lovely. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it was equal parts haunting, inspirational. The one scene in the high school, and this is kind of obscure, but I thought it was really interesting and telling when you sat in with the guidance counselor, I believe, and it sounded like he told you, don't even try. This is not going to work for you. You can't go to college. You can't do this. How much did that play? How big of a role did that play in your decision? How much did it inspire you moving forward?
Okay, I'm
Motivate you.
going to read for 1 minute, and then I'm going to answer a question. Steve Jobs, John Lennon, Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, Cher, Eddie Murphy, Simone Biles, Greg Louganis, Coco Chanel, Nelson Mandela, Larry Ellis, Eleanor Roosevelt, Maya Angelou, Tammy Baldwin, Nancy Reagan, Ella Fitzgerald, Tina Turner, Carol Burnett, George Lopez, J.R.R. Tolkien, Edgar Allan Poe, Simone Bolivar, Aristotle, John Swift, and dare I say Harry Potter. Foster kids. I could go on. My editor and their lawyers put me through the effing ringer to get that list in a book. Because they're like, well, that you have to prove that. And so I had to prove it. Every step of the way, and it's not just for kids like me, it's for, I have a bunch of sisters, foster and biological. We're all told messages about who we are and what we should strive for. And then we have our internal monologue about what we hope and dream and somewhat are a little afraid of that dream. Every moment, it felt like my childhood. And I say this in the dedication to my mom. I felt like I was conquering one impossible thing at a time. And so I sat across from yet another asshole telling me to be less, not to aim high, which had been essentially every adult except my mom in my life, either through indifference or the benign neglect of society or active violence of some sort or another. He was just another cast member, just another person. I looked at him like I looked at the rest of the adults in my life. They're not smarter than me. They just have more power and probably a credit card. And I used it as the wind in my sail that I was slowly sowing to go farther. That's what I did with all of those people. Yeah. Oh.
I have a question.
One more.
I work with high-risk students.
Yeah.
So how do you not be that person? What is your best advice for when you have a student that's really struggling and you know you can't be the everything?
Yeah.
But how do you not be the asshole that gets in the way of that?
There is something about honesty that is important. Kids that struggle or people that you serve that have had a life. My social worker, I had a bunch, and one of them was Mel. And I remember Mel was dropping me off at my first kiddie jail. And we were driving up, and I looked, and I'm like, why is there razor wire? And she paused the car before we got out, and she said, I am sorry. You do not belong here. I will get you out. It took her a while. And later on, Mel also helped me when I got thrown out of my one good foster family's home. She helped me, and she said, you can be right, or you can move back in with them. Apologize for something that you didn't do to get what you want. And I did, and I got what I wanted. I always appreciated her candor. And candor does not mean dissuading me from my dreams. It means like, hey, if you want to be this, then you're going to have to do Y, and then let me go take you on a tour. It doesn't always work. I mentor a bunch of kids. It's challenging. How do you not be it? It's a practice. It's self-love, patience. My sister's a social worker. She has this grace that I do not have. I'm very candid. And yet she manages to get kids from this place of itinerant, I'm not going to school, to school. And it's a gift. I don't have it. I always would recommend candor, honesty, and it's not about telling people they can't. It's about demonstrating how they can and then questioning and helping them understand, are they ready for that commitment to achieve whatever it is. I'll stop with this, but when you get on the airplane, they're like, if air masks descend, put yours on before helping others. That's the other thing I would say is a lot of caregivers do not take care of themselves. My sister, I do her taxes, and Mo was like, Jessica, you spend 13% of your income, which is not much, on your kids on your caseload. She's constantly working. I feel like she's Airbnb. She's constantly trying to find placements for people. She doesn't take care of herself, and she's going to burn out. So I would say what I said plus self-care, because I know it can be daunting. I want to thank Mark. I want to thank the Michael. Can you go by Mike? Suzanne. I want to thank Union Mission for having me here in this amazing city. They're the ones that got me into the book festival, which I'm very grateful for. And thank you all for listening. 2 favors to ask of you. If you read the book and like it, leave a good review. It helps me tremendously. And come say hello. I'll be out in the park. Even if you don't buy the book, I'll be out in the park, reliving my childhood, living in the park. Say hello. Thank you all.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David.